What's up guys, Nathan here. I wasn't going to make this video because honestly I didn't realize this was a thing, and I also didn't think anybody cared, but I've had a couple of people ask me on my stream, and then also I'm just a little bit sad slash salty that I can't afford to go to Exilecon myself, so here we are, and I figured I'd make this video for my top predictions for Exilecon 2019. So jumping right in, I want to talk about some of my predictions involving the lore. Now obviously this is all speculation based on random images and whispers and rumors that have been going around on the internet, so none of this is set in stone. Please don't hold me to this. That's why this is called a predictions video, not a facts video. But let's quickly talk about what I've seen slash gleaned from the announcement page. The big one that I've noticed is everything looks so distinctly witchy or hexed or cursed. I don't even know how else to put it. These are the main images that I'm talking about, obviously. I think the really clear stuff that a lot of people have initially noticed are this image right here with this spooky looking man who's like covered in these weird tentacles. But I don't want to focus on that just yet. What I want to focus on instead is the background landscapes. You can see this very dark and dreary forest, and it really looks like the kind of forest that you would wander through. Let's zoom in on this. That you would wander through very late at night and then maybe run into a witch or some kind of ghost or some hag. And that's kind of the theme that I'm thinking we're looking at for, if not 3.9, 4.0. The other thing that's kind of interesting, we also have this little like goat guy over here. This is kind of a generic Wickerman goat spooky looking thing, and it doesn't tell me that much about the expansion, but I will get into its interesting coloring in a second. The second thing that I noticed about all of these weird witchy vistas is, of course, this guy right here, as well as the green ghosts behind him. Now, the reason why he's a little bit interesting to me is, first of all, he does have this almost elder decay aura about him, but it's not quite the elder. The big thing that I noticed is it has these weird orange tendrils sort of reaching up to his face, or maybe even coming out of his face. And the Elder's Decay, first of all, the Elder's Decay is more of a blackish gray, whereas this is more of a bluish gray, in my opinion anyway. My eyesight could be a little bit lying to me here, but these orange tendrils almost look like a blight from Blight League to me. They don't really look like the Elder. And then right here, there's this interesting sort of knotted off arm, like somebody took ropes, potentially even the old man himself, and tied ropes around his arm. So maybe he's preventing some sort of affliction or maybe even curse from spreading throughout the rest of his body. The second thing that I noticed is actually not the guy himself, but the ghosts, or rather spirits, behind him. I think there's the very obvious comparison, you could say, that these spirits look a lot like the tormented spirits from, well, the game. And they do have that same aesthetic, obviously. They're green, but I think there's something that's a little bit deeper about them, and that's they look a lot like the playable classes in the game. Now, I don't know if you guys see this, but for me, this character right here, this guy looks like the Shadow to me. This guy over here looks like the Duelist to me. Now, they do have sort of similar hairstyles, so they could be interchangeable here. This could be the Duelist, and this could be the Shadow. But for me, that's what I'm seeing with those. And then when you look up at this guy, and no, I'm not chopping this off intentionally. This is literally where they cut it off at the top. If you look at the source image, this 100% looks like the Scion to me. And I'll pull up another image when I'm editing the video, but to me, this looks almost identical to the key art that you can find of the Scion, where she's sort of like splaying her hair back in this almost divine manner. That's what this character looks like to me. And for me, that's the big tell over both of these guys, who may or may not look like playable characters. This 100% looks like the Scion to me. There's also another little tidbit that I noticed when browsing through, and this was actually brought to my attention by somebody named Agenta in my Discord, and that is, if you move past this little guy here when you're scrolling down, you will notice this very odd depiction of Oriath at the very bottom of the page. And we can scroll down, we can actually see it on the page proper. And it's right at the very bottom before you get to things to do in New Zealand. And it's upside down Oriath. Or to be more apt, it's inverted Oriath. And that's why at first I wasn't sure why this guy had the colors and themes that he does, because I thought he should better fit maybe this dark aesthetic instead of having this weird fiery aura about him. But I think the reason why he's fiery at all is just because when they wanted to place him down here, they wanted him to better fit with the existing elements that he was placed near on the page. So I don't think the colors of the Spearman really matter. I think he's really just meant to fit the theme of this image, but he has been rendered a little bit orange because of this upside down Oriath. Now, back to the upside down Oriath, what does anything that's upside down or inverted, what would you call that? You might call that mirrored. So that's one thing that Agenta said, is maybe we're looking at some sort of Calandra themed expansion. I think we could argue that maybe all of this stuff is coming from either 4.0 or 3.9, and maybe this inverted Oriath, maybe this is for whatever the invert of that would be. So for example, if this stuff is about 3.9, then maybe this inverted Oriath, maybe this is 4.0. So maybe we get this witchy themed expansion where you have this old, afflicted old man sending out on missions to potentially hunt or help these specters of ourselves. Maybe that's 3.9. And then maybe 4.0 is a literal, like, all in, here's the dark side of the moon, inverted version of Oriath, Calandra, mirror themed expansion. And one other thing, and I'm only bringing this up because Agenta mentioned this as well, is there is this image of innocence right here, and I honestly think they just thought that that was almost a nod to their own sort of divinity or like godliness. The fact that they're streaming the majority of Exilecon for free with no digital ticket required, like that's almost a benevolent gesture for them in the face of how BlizzCon does thing, which is literally you pay money to be advertised their products. So I think that's why they put innocence here. I think that's kind of just a nod at the generosity of that decision by them. I don't actually think innocence has anything to do with the upcoming content. He is a loose end lore wise. If you go talk to him at the end of the game, I can't remember word for word what he says, but he says something about like, "Oh, I must reflect on my actions. I'm going to go north." And I don't think they really delve into what north means. So he could potentially be some loose end that needs to be tied up, but I personally don't think that he's actually going to play any major role in definitely not 3.9. I really don't think he's going to be relevant to 3.9 unless this setting that we talked about is for some reason up north. And I also don't really think he's going to play a huge role in 4.0. He might play a role. I could see him potentially having some role in this weird, maybe mirror world that we may or may not investigate, but I don't think he's going to be as massive as some people think he's going to be. Because I think a lot of people will see this image of him and they're like, oh, like, why would you put this picture of innocence on the page if he wasn't going to be, you know, super important in the upcoming expansion? I don't know. I'm just not sold on it. I could be wrong, but it is what it is. And one more thing I just wanted to add, because I know people will be mad at me if I don't talk about this. And that is this sort of right underneath things to do in New Zealand. They have this image here on the side, which looks like a bunch of, crying out, uh, characters, men, I guess, inside of this grayish background. And for me, I think this is just very clearly decay from the Elder. It looks like these are souls that have sort of been consumed and added into the machine that, I don't know, further propagates the decay. And, maybe this is important for the upcoming expansion or, 3.9, 4.0, who knows? But to me, this looks like concept art. Like this almost feels like something they might have drawn early on. Um, when they were trying to come up with ideas for the Elder. It doesn't seem as refined as some of the other images pictured that I just talked about. And then also the fact that it's behind things to do in New Zealand and just casually fades into the regular Path of Exile sort of background. I don't know exactly where this is in the game, but this is a very iconic background image that's used for a lot of Path of Exile related material. So this is nothing. So honestly, I don't think this image is worth talking about too much. If anything, it just reminds us that the Elder is going to be some omnipresent force going forward, regardless of where the story decides to progress to. Okay, so next up, this is the fun stuff in my opinion, is let's talk about the content predictions that I have. My first prediction, and this is not really that bold, this is just what I think they're going to do with Blight, is I think they're going to sort of mindlessly implement Blight the same way they did Legion. I guess mindlessly isn't right, but I think they're just going to do it the same way they did with Legion. I think it's going to be like a, what is a 10% chance to spawn in your maps. I'm sure there's going to be rooms in the temple added. I'm sure there's going to be delve nodes added. And I think they're going to give one of the members scarabs. If I had to pick, I think they're probably going to give them to Ashling because Ashling does not have a ton of super appealing stuff into Syndicate right now. Like, yeah, she has some nice stuff if you're trying to do a lot of unveiling. But I think as far as giving different members access to different things, I think they could just maybe increase the drop rates of veiled items in general, or just make veiled items more accessible in general, so Ashling doesn't really have an important place. And then just turn Ashling into the new Vegan, give her access to oils, give her access to blight chests, give her access to blighted maps. That would be a really cool reward. Put her in one of the less meta areas, like maybe transportation. Ashling could give you blighted maps. That would be really cool. And then of course she would give the she would have blight scarabs as well. Like, I don't know, like maybe you have like a tier 3 Ashling intervention, you're going to get a gilded blighted scarab which guarantees you to have one spawn of blight with 10 lanes or something like that. So I think they're just going to implement blight the exact same way they implemented Legion, and some people are going to be sad, some people are going to be happy. I think the opinion is pretty 50-50 right now on whether or not you enjoy blight, but you know, if you just add it to the core game and then make it so people don't have to interact with it, they can just buy their oils and never really see it unless they get unlucky and it pops up in their maps. I don't think there's any contention there. I think it should be a fine addition to the game. This is probably a little bit bolder, not by a lot, but just a little bit bolder, is I think we're going to see a fundamental rework to mapping as early as 3.9. And I'm saying 3.9 because it feels like to me they know that mapping is starting to wear on people. There's people who've been playing this game and going through the whole gambit, you know, starting out their Atlas, killing Shaper within a first week, within the first couple of weeks. They've been doing this for years now. I personally am like a early sort of 3.0 era baby, so I'm not actually really tired of the gameplay loop. I'm a little tired of it, like maybe 10% tired of it, but I'm just starting to get to a point where I'm tired of it, whereas I'm sure there are people who have been tired of the mapping process and the gameplay loop for well over a year now. And I'm thinking we're going to get some fundamental reworks to the way endgame works as early as 3.9. And the reason why I say 3.9 instead of just 4.0 potentially is because they constantly keep introducing mechanics to speed up the process. Like, for example, Zana missions that let you sort of get things done faster. And then when they pushed the rework on Zana even more to let you target where you put your Zana with master missions, that speeds it up even more. When they added horizon orbs to the drop table, that made it even easier. When they gave you access to different map mods to change the tiers of the maps you run, they basically keep giving us tools to make the grind faster because they know people don't love it. So I think they probably are really going over in their head what they want to do to make the process as easy as possible. And I think potentially just reworking it in general so they don't have to make it feel like something that people don't want to do is something they could try to move forward on as soon as 3.9. Obviously, 4.0, I think they're going to do a full rework on the endgame experience, but I'm just saying it might come as early as 3.9. The next thing, and I think this is going to be 4.0. I don't think we're going to see this in 3.9, but I think we are going to get a new class, or at the very least, new ascendancies for all the classes. I think a lot of people might blindly say, oh yeah, we're getting a new class, obviously. But there's something to anybody who's really spent a good amount of time with the Path of Exile skill tree. There's something really almost beautiful about it, and just symmetrical and mathematically makes sense. And it doesn't really, like, where would you even put a new class? Unless you wanted to literally create a new skill tree, it would not really be, there's no like comfy way to fit in a new class, because we have our 3 main attributes. We have intelligence, strength, dex, and then we have the 3 hybrid classes that fit in between each of those 3 attributes. And then you have the Scion, which goes in the middle, which just makes sense. You know, it's symmetrical. It's thematically fits into all, like, the way the skills work in Path of Exile. Nothing about the skill tree really feels like it would be comfortable if you were to just casually throw in an 8th class. So I don't think we're going to get a new class. And if we do get a new class, I think we're going to see absolutely insane reworks of the skill tree, which would in turn maybe lead to some reworks of the gem system, which maybe would rework some of the armor and stat requirements that exist. I just don't think we're getting a new class, but I do think we're going to see new ascendancies. Some ascendancies I would love to see. I would love to see a druid, maybe put that on the marauder. I think that fits an interesting spot that would maybe make him more willing to move towards the dex and intelligence side of the tree, and then also get more in touch with his base sort of instincts and his relationships with nature. Like Chieftain kind of does that, but I think Druid could really go all in on that fantasy. And then there's also Duelist. I think maybe he could be a scholar, so maybe he has easier access to the intelligence side of the tree. Shadow could potentially be a thief. That would already put him on the dex side, but maybe something that's a little more magic find focused, or just maybe accumulating more currency. I don't know. I know GGG doesn't love Magic Find right now. I don't love it either, but that could still be thematically interesting and relevant for a Shadow to graduate into Thief. Templar, I thought maybe he could have access to Holy Archer, just because that's literally on the opposite side of the tree, so that could be kind of interesting. And more than anything, with these weird ascendancies that I'm coming up with right now, obviously I wrote these down. They're not coming off the top of my head, but basically give the if they're not going to rework the tree heavily, maybe give us some new ways to move around the tree more easily. Like, for example, part of what makes Scion really cool is the fact that you can start all over the tree based on where you go. Maybe if you take these weird ascendancies, like if you go Duelist Scholar, maybe you can go start up at the witch side. Or maybe there's like a special entry point where the Scholar would start that would be near I don't know, it would be like maybe near the corner, maybe it would be near like Ellie Overload and Minion Instability. Anyway, I really think we are likely to see some new ascendancies, and I really would love to see, at the very least, I really want to see Druid. I think everybody knows Druid is something D4 is getting, and I think that's something that a lot of people would like to play, because we don't have any like real shape-shifting skills in Path of Exile. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I can't really think of any shape-shifting skills we have. We have minions, that's not shape-shifting at all. You can get some pets, you can get those uniques that will like randomly summon things to follow you around, like Harbinger uniques or whatever. But yeah, we don't have any true shape shifting. So if we don't get a Druid, maybe at least some kind of shape shifting ascendancy or skill gem, which would really be the Path of Exile way of doing it, which is giving all classes access to it. And my last prediction here for for content is I think we're going to see some crazy new end game system added to the game, potentially as early as 3.9. Like I said, people are kind of getting tired of the mapping process and they want more stuff to do at the end game. And I'm hoping, well, I don't even necessarily I'm hoping, I don't know what I'm hoping for, but I'm thinking they are going to add some kind of new delve-like mechanic with infinite replayability. And in turn, I think they're going to give us access to new levels of power creep, hopefully in the form of either more levels or maybe more skill points so you can path around the tree. And if they do end up adding a new class or reworking the skill tree and, giving us access to more nodes, I think it would totally make sense for them to give us access to a system where we could get more skill points. I don't know if this would be impossible or out of the realm of like what power creep GGG is even willing to add into the game, but maybe some sort of system where you can infinitely gain more skill points, and every time you gain a new skill point, it gets exponentially harder to get that additional skill point. So maybe you can hit 90 and then maybe getting like an extra skill point on top of that isn't that hard. Maybe the next one's like pretty tough. Third one's really, really hard. And then if you want to even start looking at 5+ bonus skill points, you're looking at like crazy grind, and you're going to need to be like some full-time streamer player to really hit these numbers, which, I know some more casual players wouldn't be a fan of, but personally, I'm a big fan of games rewarding people for putting more time into them. I'm sorry for those of you that want to have the same progress as people who play 7 days a week when you only play 1 day a week. But I do think it's really cool to reward people for sinking lots of time and effort into games. I really don't know what this new system would be. The only reason why I said Delve-like is just because Delve has infinite scaling. So just some kind of crazy new infinite scaling thing. I'd love to see that as early as 3.9. And last but not least, we have the community memes. In no particular order, I think that Chris Wilson is going to make some jab at Diablo within the first 5 minutes of the keynote. I think someone is going to die to some bug during the race event, whether it's going to be some really obvious game-breaking bug or just some very odd piety AI. I really do think that a bug is going to get somebody killed in the race, and it's going to be really awkward, and the commentators are just going to have to pretend it's not a big deal. Another big one is I think Ziz is going to get way too drunk at the after party, maybe I'm making too many assumptions, but that man, just looking at him, I feel like he is not going to hold his alcohol well. And there are going to be some very funny highlights to look at the next day, assuming that Twitch actually streams this after party. Bex is going to show up with her baby, which she said she wouldn't come to she wouldn't be able to come to Exilecon, but I think she's going to show up for maybe just like 30 minutes or an hour, and she's going to have a baby, and she's going to, people are going to meet it and they're going to touch its head, and it's going to be really cute. And then she's going to go home because it's not responsible to have a baby at Exilecon for an extended period of time. And last but not least, I have this wholesome prediction that Tarky and Ziggy D are going to be an excellent duo. They're going to always say the right things. They're going to bounce off each other well. And then Crip is going to sort of awkwardly sit there. And then when he talks, he'll sort of sound really out of touch, like he doesn't play the game, but he's going to be really enthusiastic. And that's going to be okay, because positivity is what we signed up for, and it's going to be a great stream. And my very last prediction, and this is my overarching prediction that doesn't fit into any category, and that is this Exilecon, what is going to be announced is going to actually blow everybody's socks off. I literally don't think anybody here can anticipate how insane whatever the announcement is. I know it sounds like I'm overhyping this, and I know I'm setting you guys up to be disappointed. At least that's what it sounds like. But I legitimately think that GGG is so in tune with what their player base wants, and is so knowledgeable about what the competition is doing. Chris Wilson is going on Reddit and literally responding to D4 announcements with, "We're revving up our engines, we're going to be ready." I think whatever they have for us is going to be everything that I am sort of like the same magnitude of everything that I'm suggesting today times like 5. Like, I think it's literally going to be and then we doubled it type situation. So if you guys are like me, you're, putting on your hype hats, you're getting on the hype train, and you're just going to ride that until you crash into a wall of disappointment. But that's okay, because I think GGG is going to do their best to remove that wall. And I think whatever is in store for us is going to be mind-blowing, and I'm beyond excited, and I'm a huge fanboy. Hope you guys enjoyed my predictions today. I know this was kind of an impromptu video, but I can't stop thinking about Exilecon, so I figured I would make it. Anyway, thank you for watching. My name's Nathan, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you!
I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters: Real Human, Zikarak, Squally, Zoljan, Coda, Julia, Allen, Kepler, Sparky, Kata, Fusk, Putzak, Heiser, 801, Kyle, Ice Dude, Ginzink, Anonymous, and Orangina. Thank you guys so much. You make what I do possible, especially during the downtime in between leagues. If anyone else is interested in supporting me on Patreon, you can check me out at patreon.com/NathanBrotherBob. You can also check me out at twitch.tv/NathanBrotherBob every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time. And then if you want to join my Discord and talk to me, or talk to my community, or just make some new friends, you can check out my Discord right there in the bottom right-hand corner that I will never try to say out loud, but I'm sure you can read just fine, or click in the description below. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Nathan, and I will see you next time.